Greetings, Nerd Fam, and welcome to a very special Analyst Angle, a Savvy exclusive here this afternoon with our friends coming to you from our Palo Alto studios here on theCUBE, bringing in our friends from Zetaris. We've got two of their brilliant minds with us today. We've got Vinay, a return guest, and we've also got a new face on theCUBE, at least in this context, Michael. Vinay and Michael, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of busy season to be here to celebrate this announcement. Michael, we're gonna dig into everything you in a second, but we had the privilege of getting to spend time with Vinay at GTC in March, which in AI years feels like a decade ago. I would love to hear some of the update. I know a lot has happened between March and today, so give us the highlights.
Hi, Savannah. Thanks for having us on. Look, things are looking great. So since we last spoke, our revenue growth has been phenomenal, and our funnel is just amazing. We kind of staged to have this a quarter that I just can't believe that we're about to have. It's 10x on last quarter.
Whoa,
And then the other
10x
big
on the
thing,
quarter. I'm sorry, you don't get to move past that quickly. That's a very
yeah,
impressive number that's worth calling out. Okay, we're gonna dive into why. You can continue on that highlight
ab-
monologue, but we are putting a pin in that 10x
absolutely,
number.
yeah. Super exciting.
Absolutely.
I'll give you a hint why. I feel like our channels are starting to really kick in, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Looking back over the last few months, things like, customers are really exploring alternatives for their legacy data environments. People are starting to really look hard at, what is this distributed way of handling data? And we're reaping the benefits of that, including we had, last quarter, we had a multi-million dollar quarter, which for a software
Woo!
company on the early growth curve, that's huge for us. Prior to that, we've been around the 300 grand kind of average deal size.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say $1 million quarter, I should say actually $1 million deals. So, it's the first time in the history of this company where we're doing multi-million dollar software deals. And so moving from that average deal size of, 300 grand to now looking at massive deals. It's super exciting. And again, I'll say it's things like that open lakehouse architecture that clients are starting to explore, which is, you don't necessarily have to move all the data into the center, and you can join data in real time for AI and BI. That's really catching on. And then this idea of a query director, which brings down the cost of compute in the cloud and also in the data center. And finally, this concept of AI for information management. All of that coming together, it's really driving us into that early to hopefully, we'll be talking soon about being in the mid growth curve. So super exciting. And then, I guess this is why we're talking today. Today, we're doing a whole lot of hiring. So the business is growing as well. I've hired right across the globe. We've got people now in Southeast Asia. We're about to announce a leader that we've hired in Southeast Asia, a leader for UK, Europe, and our new CTO, Michael Hay, that we recently hired out of Hitachi. So it's growth. That's what's happened over the last few months, and driven by customers wanting an alternative to the boring old way of managing data. Trying to put it all into one bucket. There's a new way. So that's it. It's a happy update, Savannah.
Well, we love a good happy update, and I'm not surprised. It's also nice to hear that the resounding messaging around being a modern data lakehouse and providing a very tangible and superior alternative to some of those legacy systems is really paying off. It's no wonder that now was a premier moment to bring in a new, fantastic, and very experienced, brilliant CTO. Michael, welcome to the team and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Susanna, for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and kind of talk about coming to Zetaris. So it's been a wonderful few weeks, actually.
I'd love to see it, and I could feel your energy in the green room, virtual green room, as we were getting ready to shoot today. So you have a history of employer loyalty, to put it lightly. You've stayed at places for multiple decades in the past, so I can imagine you put a lot of thought into this very big career shift. Tell us a little bit about what made Zetaris the most attractive next step for you and the potential that you see for the company already here in these first few weeks.
Absolutely. So I was at Hitachi, as you mentioned, for about 20 years across two stints. I had an interlude or intermission at Teradata, which is sort of where I adopted or at least carried on some of the data management skills. And I went back to Hitachi because I think there's this wonderful opportunity where you've got AI, you've got things like data sovereignty and data ownership and data platform ownership, as well as data and infrastructure markets kind of coming in this point of collision. And I encountered Vinay, what was it, maybe late 23, I think, Vinay, is when we first started having a discussion. And I kind of vividly remember that dialogue because I was trying to solve a particular problem. And I was lucky enough to encounter through a bit of an accident, a happy accident, I would say, Vinay's company. And it just seemed like really good technology and a good background in a team to help make the reality of really storage types of companies get to the next level from a data perspective. And so since that time, we kind of worked and progressed a relationship. And at some point, what happened when I saw these sort of three things going on again, AI, data platform ownership, data sovereignty, and then these markets sort of coming together, it was just super fascinating to see the opportunity from Vinay. We really started talking, I guess, almost about a year ago, nearly to the day, nearly to the week, about what this could look like, and the virtues that Vinay liked in me, and the technology and capabilities that I see both in the team and the company itself from a tech stack, and the problems that Vinay talks about. We try to solve with our customers and are successful at. So some of those problems really are about the reality of data does not exist in one bucket; it exists in many buckets. And if you kind of take that as a truth, you start to think about solving the problem a little bit differently. And of course, with things like sovereignty, the buckets are now further apart, and people want to, hug their buckets and be able to basically provide awareness that respects controls and respects privacy and regulations and laws, but at the same time gives them that single view. And that's kind of what Zetaris provides. And then deeper in, Vinay sort of talked about this idea of AI in the data management space, and there's some really cool R&D that we're doing there to make sure that more people can kind of manage their data. And one thing I'm very excited about, because it respects something that I learned at Teradata, which was not every database kind of solves all problems. So this query direction idea from a technology perspective is understated, but really, really slick, because what it does is it lets the right request or a query basically go to the right engine. And that's pretty profound, because it means you might not be overspending if you're in the cloud with the wrong engine and auto scaling, and seeing your bill go up linearly or exponentially as your queries go up. So certainly I've seen in my career queries that ran over the weekends and cost millions of dollars, quite literally, or insurance companies who had exhausted their entire budgets for the year in one quarter with cloud data warehousing. So I think we're kind of that inoculant against many of those different things, and certainly data and storage markets and sovereignty and AI are all fundamental with what Zetaris does.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't help a good story. Can you tell us what that happy accident was that led you to finding Vinay and Zetaris?
Oh, I think so. The happy accident was Jeb Horton, who is somebody that Vinay, I guess, encountered at HPE. Does that seem right, Vinay?
Yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
mate.
Jeb introduced us, and the accident was I was trying to figure out how to solve a problem, and it's like, we'll go talk to other people. And finally, Vinay got me on the line, and I started talking about what I was doing in terms of need, which was about helping storage peeps who basically think data management means make a copy, and hearing him talk about the success he's had in his career with Netezza and IBM and Vertica and HP and Greenplum and EMC at the time. And I'm like, oh, duh. And so that was kind of the accident moment. I was super happy, and to have Vinay's team sort of step up and work with Hitachi, being on the other side of that was quite impressive. So that was the happy accident.
Oh, that's
It was a
awesome.
great accident because it ended up in quite a great capability in terms of Hitachi having a strong SQL on object store. So we managed to implement a capability where customers can actually analyze data right down at the storage level. And that was something Mike was working on, and we helped him crack the code on it, which I strongly believe is probably the best offering on the market for SQL and object at the moment. So a good accident.
Well, a good accident, and one that really affirmed the technical capability of Zetaris and the real advantage there. I mean, you got to sip the wonderful champagne before you had to make it. So I think that's a fantastic way of getting to introduce yourself to a new tool as well as to your new boss, essentially. So when I think about this, particularly as an analyst and someone who's followed a lot of hype curves, is this a really eyes-on moment for the CTO? Tech stack probably never been under greater scrutiny. I mean, it's obviously always a cost center and something that companies are thinking about. But let's talk about, Vinay, I'm going to ask you first. I can imagine, well, I mean, it's clear you've been communicating with Michael and probably low-key recruiting him for the last year. What were the things that you were looking for in terms of the CTO at that role as we roll into the accelerated velocity of 2026?
Absolutely. So, we've managed to break into this market fairly quickly, actually, in the scheme of things. And we've done that by having quite unique and disruptive innovation through our history. So if you look at our ability to join real-time data sources to data lakes to operational systems, there's a whole lot of tech innovation behind that makes that possible that others can't do. And then if you look at the query director, which I think is unique in the market, no one else is doing that. And soon to be known is this whole capability that we're bringing out, and we launched it not so long ago, which is AI for IM, or AI for the information management data engineering. All of that innovation has managed to help us make a mark in the market, right? But as a small company up against massive organizations, the thing you need is to keep an absolute keen eye on that continuous innovation cycle, to make sure that you're always bringing something new out, you're always ahead of the pack, because that's the only way we can be taken seriously when it comes to being compared to other large companies. So we were on the lookout for someone who understood innovation, understood the market, had been in all the right places. So, apart from Hitachi, Mike's done a whole lot of innovation at Hitachi and brought some great technologies to the market. But he also was at Teradata, who I feel, and I know, was one of the founders of this whole, data warehousing, decision support market that and ultimately big data and AI market that we're in today. So, Mike having that pedigree, that early background in understanding how analytics and information can fuel business growth, was the ideal person to help us keep that keen eye on innovation and driving us in front of the pack. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we needed someone who understood it, someone who knew the market, knew the players, to represent great technology, which we had built. So for those reasons, Mike was the ideal guy. I didn't, after we met Michael, the whole focus was to try to get him over. It wasn't as though we had, 3 or 4 candidates. It was, we met the right guy, he had the right background, got it, and here he is. Yeah.
You were always number one, Michael. It must be a nice feeling to hear. I've done a fair bit of work with both Hitachi and Teradata, so I can affirm everything you just said as well, Vinay. It's definitely a thing. Michael, I'm curious for you, having been in a highly technical role for a while, what do you think, and this might be a challenging question, so you can get interpretive with it, but I'm just curious, what do you think is the number one skill or challenge or requirement of today's CTO?
Sure. So first, I'm going to respond to Vinay's point and your comment about recruiting. Vinay tried a couple of times to catch my attention, but I was a little dense. And I kept introducing him to other people. And eventually it dawned on me. So that was the other flip side of the accident, for real. Like,
me? What?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
So there was a bit of that. But, your question on like, what is it going to take to, CTO skills sort of in this era where you've got what I would call the cappuccino of tech stacks, which means lots of froth and just a little coffee at the bottom, in some sense.
Ooh,
So
I
the
love that
value is hard to
analogy.
find.
That's a great one.
Yeah, and let's put a little numbers to that. Like I have another sort of hobby, which is thinking about product discovery work, because a lot of companies do a terrible job at it. Let's say 95% of companies don't do well. I was blessed in my career to have an opportunity to really spend a lot of time with customers, really spend a lot of time with partners, and be able to do that collaboratively with engineering. And so to get to the value fast, you have to know that there's froth is the point. And what does the froth look like? Well, the froth looks like, I think in 2023, I want to say the OECD said between major developed nations in the world, there's about $2.3 trillion in R&D money spent. And if you kind of pull on the threads and do a bunch of reading, you'll figure out that between 94 to 93% of it's wasted. And the reason why it's wasted is because no one checks in with their customers. So
That's a depressing
yes, there's
stat on a lot of
yeah,
different levels, to be
it
completely
it it
honest. That's, I mean,
it, it totally
I'm
is.
unfortunately not surprised by that, but it's also, oh man, yeah, it's just it's a bit jarring that, simple things
Right.
make such a valuable impact, and also can ensure that you're not spinning your wheels or wasting your time or engineering resources developing something that the market isn't craving. It's the whole, oh, we built it, but they didn't come. Why? Well, because we didn't go talk to them. We didn't engage our
Well,
community. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. You didn't ask them if that's what they wanted to buy. Basically, you
Mhm.
haven't gone to your partner team to understand what they need to be successful, so their experience is smooth. And so, when I think about innovation, yes, there's a ton of technology. I mean, there's
Right.
my favoriteest thing these days is what Stripe has done with a new, I guess, foundation model for payments. They didn't use any text; it's all numerics, and it radically improved their ability to detect fraud from, like, say, the 50th percentile to 97th percentile versus their old tech stack. So transformer-based, really cool stuff. Not numerics, and it's sort of contrarian. And I think to carry on from Vinay's point about innovation, which is often innovation happens when you see something that's contrarian. It's not quite as straightforward. What Query Director is an example of that. Rather than say that our engine, which is based on open technologies, is the only right engine. We're like, there are virtues and reasons for other technologies like Trino and Presto. How do we put those together to solve problems for our customer around reducing costs? Because we've heard from them. We've heard from them around bill shock. We've heard from them around, putting information in their hands as fast as possible. And then you get down to, the fact that if you see some recent reporting from McKinsey, they're going to talk about some of the few jobs that remain in this era of AI kind of growing are going to be in the area of data management. So how do you make more of those people? And a part of that's AI for information management. It's adding AI into the pipeline, building agent technologies that make it much easier to kind of get to an outcome faster. You're still going to have to iterate on it because that's how the modern coding experience is working. But how do you get there faster? How do you apply those rules and technologies? And so I think how to make things come more quickly, but also make the right things. And it's important more so than ever these days, where there's more opportunity to try things faster. But if you don't engage with your users, if you don't engage with your customers paying and not, if you don't engage with your partners, you're not going to be making your right bets. And so the most, I think, important thing for a CTO is old fashioned. It's product discovery, business planning, relationships, and those sorts of things.
Everything old is new again. It's been a running theme
That's right.
lately with a lot of things, Michael. That was very well stated. I got two final questions for you, gentlemen. We talk a lot, well, I wouldn't say we talk a lot about it. I would say there's a bit of hype around distributed AI, and I think there's a few different interpretations of that. Vinay, I know you and I were talking about that back in September when we last saw each other. Vinay, I'm going to start with you on this one. What does distributed AI actually mean? And then let's talk about the business implications of that with you a bit, Michael. But Vinay, I'll let you start.
Absolutely. So ultimately, distributed AI is about recognizing that for the higher value use cases, accessing data in real time or at speed, and data in different places and different shapes, gives you the outcome that AI needs in terms of data access to the right view of data to create value. And so it's about recognizing that AI needs data at speed. AI needs data that's governed across the organization, and it's about learning that the cost paradigm behind AI is very different than it was behind BI. AI absolutely needs all the data for the high value use cases. So how do you access the data in a way that's timely, that meets the time window, but also how do you do it in a way that not only is respectful of the cost implications, but actually brings down the cost of doing AI compared to the traditional way. So it's really important as organizations want to move into this whole new world of transformed AI-driven businesses. It's about realizing that the legacy approach to BI doesn't just flip over into the AI world. It doesn't work. And we've seen analysts talk about this. Gartner and Forrester talking about a high failure rate in early AI projects. MIT not so long ago came out with 95% of the projects they researched, pilot projects and early projects in AI are failing. And one of the big reasons is data access. So distributed AI, federated data management, for me, is the solution to addressing the real-time requirement, the cost requirement, the data quality requirement, the governance requirement behind AI. The other thing I want to add, and it touches on something Michael said in terms of how you think about innovation in organizations. We're seeing a lot of companies, and we're helping a lot of companies actually turn their data platform and their AI initiative into a valuable asset. So distributed AI helps you build out an AI capability, a private AI capability that becomes something that you can value on your balance sheet. So one thing I say to a lot of CEOs that I meet on the industry side or in other industries is don't give away your tacit knowledge and your valuable business IP by using an open or public AI capability. Build your own LLMs, build your own AI.
Louder for the people in the back, Vinay. Seriously, I think just to emphasize that, I think one of the biggest gaps in general knowledge, whether that be at the enterprise or the individual level, is what it actually means to put data into one of these larger LLMs. You are literally giving it all to them. That's
absolutely,
and there is no guardrail there whatsoever right now.
Yeah, and I think the biggest misunderstanding is that if I protect my data and I don't give my data away, that's fine. I comply with privacy and my security posture and all of that. But the thing is with AI, you don't have to give your data away. All you need to do is expose it to an LLM, and then it knows your business.
Exactly.
It's got your tacit knowledge. So what we're seeing as a big opportunity for Zetaris, and it's related to distributed AI, because if you've got distributed AI, then you can use a Zetaris platform to just lay over your existing data platforms and your existing private capabilities. And then using our private AI framework, you build out your own LLMs and you own it. And that's for me, it's a massive opportunity, but a massive threat to CEOs at the moment.
I mean, it could also be a small language model. Not everything has to be an LLM. There's certain ways to train things on different size models that will achieve potentially even greater results at a lower cost and a more optimized experience for the end users. So, I mean, we're all on the same page here, and I think this is really interesting. Michael, how are you leveraging your focus here in these first 90 days, thinking about the balance sheet and some of the stuff that you're doing both internally as well as how you're helping lead the team externally? How do you prioritize?
Right. So actually, Vinay and I are just going through a document now thinking about like those 4 themes that I just described. Right. So, he ended talking about ownership of AI. It also extends to ownership of your data. Your data is a reflection of your business. And so if you're giving your data away, you might as well just give your business away. That's I don't know if people kind of connected that dot.
I mean, I'm glad you just said it literally, because it's important that people understand that's actually what's at stake here.
That's right. Yeah. And, there's a lot of governments, so this is getting back to that ownership thing, who are now and having recently been in Canada several times this year, Europe several times this year, the attempt to operationally define data sovereignty to the point where there's questions about our embassy's sovereign territory and can I put my data there, right? So there's a very intensive discussion that's going on right now. And so that's a signal where I'm, trying to check in with my partners. Just recent conversations I've had with now former customers, of course, anonymized. It's in my head, but that's that pattern of going to just ask people and understand where we're at, and then looking for the simple, easy wins. If we're going to be partnering, say, with infrastructure companies, we need to make sure that we're speaking to who the people are that will experience, install, and engage with their customers, and how do we arm and enable them. So that's kind of a key and guiding point in terms of how to prioritize, what comes first, second, and third, and then make sure that we're looking for those interesting opportunities. So, Vinay just described different ways of thinking about data, moving data towards the AI location. I just had a conversation with a former chief data officer who's thinking about edge AI. He's thinking about, hey, there's a lot of focus on inferencing. Am I actually making sure that I'm getting to the edge of them? So again, this repetitive pattern of checking in, listening, sounds easy. Just mentioned it before. It's very old fashioned. But you have to recall, if you listen to the wizards at the Silicon Valley Product Group, you're going to find that a lot of companies don't do discovery work very well. And so
Or
that
with the consistent
very straight
cadence, because I think
or consistent.
what we needed 3 years ago or even 6 months ago at this rate of velocity is rapidly evolving as companies focus in
Right.
on what those use cases and value adds on the balance sheet are actually going to be. So there's no such thing as too frequent of a communication loop, I think, when it comes to the people that are signing these million and multi-million dollar deals with you. So it sounds like you've absolutely got your head on your shoulders, and that this is going to be really fun. Michael, congratulations again on your new
Thank you.
appointment. Very exciting for you, and honestly, very exciting time for you, Vinay. Congrats to you
Great.
and the team. Final question for you. You have only as few words as possible to answer this question. For those who might not know about Zetaris, if this was your 20 to 30 seconds to let them know, what do you wish they knew? Vinay, I'm going to you first because you've been here obviously longer.
Well, look, we take away the problem of preparing data, accessing it for AI and BI. For too long, data management, data warehousing, building data lakes has taken too many people and too much time and too much cost. We've solved that. We've automated the data pipelining. We're bringing AI to information management, and we've automated the build of the AI capabilities. So if you want to accelerate your journey to the value, that's what Zetaris is about, just getting to the outcome.
Beautifully stated, just like an executive who founded the company. I'm shocked. All right, Michael, you're new on the job, but not new to the value add here. Give us your pitch.
One data supply, when you need it and where you need it.
Ooh, you get the marketing snaps for
I
being so
did
quick
very well.
getting that one. Well, I could talk to you gentlemen all day. I'm sure this is the first of many times we'll be having a conversation here on theCUBE, but I'm really glad that we could separate the myth from reality a bit here on both the ROI of AI and the real value of distributed AI, and more importantly, congratulations on the recruitment, Vinay, and congratulations on your new job, Michael. This is all very exciting. Thank you guys for taking the time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. And thank all of you for tuning in to this exclusive Analyst Angle here on theCUBE. We're in Palo Alto. My name's Savannah Peterson. You're watching theCUBE, the leading source for enterprise tech news.